if I got admitted in 74, late 74, so that tells you how old I might be, I initially did a range of legal work, partnership disputes and agreements, wills, estates, civil matters, matrimonial matters, but crim was what attracted me. And I kept doing civil for a while and family for quite a while because the people were more interesting, but the crim practice kept on expanding. I knew there were a couple of friends of mine who were gay. That was fine. I wouldn't have taken myself to be gay. Never been attracted to boys, so I had no qualms about how people were. People's sexuality was their business, and they were entitled to be gay or neutral or hetero, however they chose. I can tell you that from the time I was in primary school, I would have described myself as a cross-dresser, because if back in that day there was no publicity, or almost no publicity, about transgender issues. Gender dysphoria was not a word, it was a term that I'd ever heard. So I assumed that it was that's as much as it was. But from primary school, yeah. The reality is that probably partly, as I said, it's an age and generational thing. If I'd come out as even cross-dressing to my parents, I'd have ended up probably in electroconvulsive therapy or something, and that's despite my father being a doctor who wouldn't have liked the idea. So, but it just built up over time, and you get to a stage where any paraphilia that's attached to what you do, or simple pleasure, is so overwhelmed and overtaken by the fact that you feel so right not being a boy. And it just is for me, it was a thing that built up over time, that awareness. So the more you allowed yourself to be the person, as it turns out, you were destined to be, the stronger it becomes and the more overwhelming it becomes. I figured there would be mixed results. I lived as Heather for roughly 6 months at home in Mount Barker and wherever I went, except in public for work purposes in particular. So I, in that time, told judges that I knew, magistrates that I knew, senior detectives that I knew, prosecutors, court reporters, that this was going to happen. And I figured that on the whole, the profession would be neutral about it. Some would be supportive, there might be some objection, but not very much. I didn't expect much opposition, and as it turned out, I got no opposition, or at least expressed to my face. I'm sure there were some members of the profession that found it difficult. In fact, I'm told that there were a couple of members of the profession who started worrying if I'd start chasing boys, but I've never been interested in men, so why would I start now? This is an entirely different thing. Preference and identity are not the same thing. So I didn't expect much problem, and it was pretty seamless. I guess, as I've said to people, what I did was more out of stubbornness than anything else, so it really didn't matter what people thought. I wasn't going to not do it just because some people might not approve. Young lawyers and other people come to me to talk about how they're going to cope, and some of them are not sure they'll be able to stay in the profession or in their firms. And this is a pity. There's a good support network, both male and female. So I think most people just take, as a couple of the court reporters said to me the other day, you're just Heather now. Whatever you once were, you're just Heather. So, but generally speaking, there's no, there is a support network, but everybody just treats me normally. as you'd hope. I'm not sure how some of the bigger, well-heeled commercial firms would deal with someone who's dysphoric and transitions whilst working for them. I would hope that there's no problem. When I get interviewed outside court, the press interview Heather, they're not worried whether I'm transgender. There was a time, transgender lawyer says so and so. It's gone. Just let us grow up to be ourselves. And increasingly people are, at least in the legal profession, certainly seem inclined to do that. And if you've been living as your true gender, if you're affirming your true gender earlier, then it makes it much easier when you go out hunting for work, because you'll have built a support network at the uni anyway. And when you go out looking for work, you'll be relaxed as you and not uptight. Rather than waiting until you're working in a firm and then thinking, right, it's time to do it, I better go and tell the partners that this is what's going to happen. I'd do it now, not later. There's nothing like, because very few people have the luxury of this, there is nothing like finding yourself living as the person you were supposed to be. To be me is unbeatable. And you can't know that until you do it. You can only guess at it and think about it. It's the best thing you can do.